Right, so the new year has begun. It is, today's the 10th of January. I came back to work yesterday, the 9th. Indeed, it is a wonderful blessing to be able to have leave over the Christmas and New Year period. And of course, here in the Southern Hemisphere, this is our summer holiday, and I had a wonderful time with the family and with the kids, but it's great to be back at the office again. Came in today on my trusty BMW 650 GS, such a beautiful old bike. How many years would it be old now? It's about 13 years old, and it still goes like an absolute charm. Okay, so I'll tell you in a minute what I'm doing right at the start of the year before the academic term begins. So you may notice from my surroundings that I'm not at the Faculty of Theology today. In fact, I'm on main campus. This is the administration block of Stellenbosch University, and I'm just between the Wilcox building and administration A and B, and I'm on this side of campus because I'm attending a course which is being run by the African Doctoral Academy, and I was very fortunate to receive a scholarship to do an advanced course in ATLAST.ti. I'll tell you a little bit more about ATLAST.ti just in a moment. So just behind me here is the entrance to the main university library. We have our own library at the Faculty of Theology, but I often come down here. As you can see, the campus is absolutely quiet at the moment. The first year students will only start coming in about a week's time. Our orientation for our students in the Faculty of Theology begins on the 19th of January, so that's in 10 days time, 9 days time. And yeah, some of our postgraduate students are around already, but it's a wonderfully quiet time of the year. Great opportunity to do a little bit of research and some of my own upskilling. So as I mentioned, I'm on campus this early in the year because I'm doing a course with the African Doctoral Academy, and the course is for a software program called ATLAST.ti. I think the terminology is that it is a computer-aided qualitative data analysis software package. How about that? How's that for a mouthful? But basically what that means is that it's a piece of software that you install on your PC or your Mac. I happen to use it on the Mac, and it allows you to work with data that you receive in a manner that makes the data searchable. It allows you to code it and to be able to use those particular data sets to be able to extract some knowledge and information from it. Now, the project that I've been involved in over the last number of years is a project on forgiveness. I've been working in focus groups with black and white South African Christians, and bringing them together in groups to see how they understand the concept of forgiveness. What is forgiveness? What might be some of the prerequisites or conditions for forgiveness? What processes would one need to follow in order for forgiveness to take place in South Africa, particularly as we deal with the effects of apartheid in our nation? It's been an absolutely fascinating study. So I had this series of group meetings with these groups of black and white South African Christians, and I had them reading a particular text, Matthew 18 verses 15 to 35, and then based on that we got them to talk a little bit about their understanding of forgiveness. So what ATLAST.ti allowed me to do was it allowed me to take transcripts of those group meetings and to be able to code them, to be able to understand using two theories that I used. I used positive intergroup contact theory, which is a form of social identity complexity theory, and Ken Wilber's integral all quadrants, all levels theory, to be able to develop a sort of a schema or a model to see how people understood forgiveness. And I found some very, very interesting things. The two basic findings that came out of this research was that, number one, South African Christians tend to be quite strongly influenced by their social identity when it comes to their biblical hermeneutics. So the way in which they interpret the text is strongly influenced by their social identity. And we found that predominantly black Christian groupings tended to collectivize and politicize the text. So their social identity is collective. They see themselves as part of a group, and their understanding of forgiveness and its conditions had political or social or economic consequences. In other words, forgiveness could only be realized when the conditions for forgiveness were fulfilled, when there was social, economic and political reparation. White South African Christians, on the other hand, tended to be more westernized, so they were individual and spiritual. And we found that what they tended to do is not to connect the social consequences of faith and life, and tended to say that forgiveness is something that operates between themselves and God, that the offended party was not necessarily the one that needed to be engaged for forgiveness to take place, but that they simply needed to restore their relationship with God through prayer or through some form of sacrifice, and in that manner forgiveness would be enacted. So it was individual and spiritual rather than communal and political. The other very interesting finding that we had was that when we brought these two groups together, the predominantly black and predominantly white groups together, to read this text, Matthew 18 verses 15 to 35, in a form of intercultural, empirical, biblical hermeneutic under the conditions of positive intergroup contact theory. So in other words, when we brought them together and facilitated positive intergroup contact in the reading of the text, their views began to shift. And this took place in two ways. First of all, we found that there was a measure of what is known as affective empathy. They began to see one another as persons, and so their prejudices about the other and the views of the other were diminished. The second thing is that because of the affective empathy, because they could imagine what the other person felt like, they began to develop a measure of cognitive empathy. In other words, they could begin to think how the other person could view things differently from themselves. And so what we found is a reorientation of ideas as these people encountered one another. Now, this is not a causal thing. We can't say that in every situation this will take place, but certainly there is some correlation between positive intergroup contact and a more integral or more holistic view of forgiveness in the Bible. Now, that wouldn't have been possible unless I had access to the kind of software that allowed me to extract and identify, to code and to reference that data in the text. So this has been an absolutely wonderful week. I've learned a lot of things. I have some students who are doing a qualitative empirical work in theology, in other words, explicating or developing or giving voice to the theology of ordinary biblical readers, of ordinary Christians in society, giving thick theological descriptions of what people are thinking, saying and doing. And I think this is a wonderful new opportunity, particularly for public theology, as we deal with issues of public concern, issues in a public nature, and want to supply knowledge and information that is in some senses useful to those even outside of theology. So remember, this is not a lecture, it's just a thought, and I need to get going. Our classes start in about 20 minutes, so I've got to go and get my computer set up for the day. It's an absolutely stunning day here in Stellenbosch, as you can see, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful day of learning. So remember, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. If you found the video useful, please like it. It helps to make it a little more visible. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and you'll be notified whenever I upload new content. There are about 60 or so videos already on various issues related to theology, particularly public theologies. Oh, and just to mention, I've already published one article based on this research. The article is entitled "The Impossibility of Forgiveness?" and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Have a truly wonderful and blessed 2017.